This is empowering a security team through new initiatives and technology. There you go. All right, so I'll start with me. So I'm Mike Perez. I'm the Associate Head of School at Pinkerton Academy. I have over 20 years of education. 13 this is my 13th year as an administrator, first year at Pinkerton Academy. So when I was at Campbell High School, I was at Campbell High School for the last 10 years. At Campbell, there was a lot smaller of a school. So as the assistant principal, I was really big into being in charge of working with the Litchfield PD on safety, security, like most of you have been. If you're in a smaller school or even in a larger school as an administrator, you have to oversee or very responsible for, safety, security, evacuations, following all those types of processes. So coming to Pinkerton, it was nice to have a director of safety and security who I'll introduce, and he's my co-presenter today. So I'll give it Eric Kester so he can introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Kester. I did 20 years at Derry PD. Worked in all different bureaus of our department. For most of my time, 12 years or so, I spent some level of supervising school resource officers. I'm not a school resource officer, I'm not trained, but I do feel confident I can answer any questions about school resource operations with you since I supervised the program for so many years. I've been at Pinkerton for like 3.5 years. My first day was the day that the school closed. So I showed up for my onboarding and there were people running for the parking lots with boxes of their supplies. So it was an interesting first day, but
Was that COVID?
That was 100% COVID. Threw my onboarding completely off. So, but I've been there 3.5 years, and we've been able to do a lot of security initiatives with the support of admin and our board of trustees, and that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today.
So session objectives. So the first one we're going to talk about is the School Marshal Program. We're going to talk about the Raptor system, and then we're going to talk about all the safety surveillance systems that we have in place that are available to schools in New Hampshire, across the country. Before we do that, I do want to, so disclaimer before I show you this video, it is an Alice video. It's a quick 1.5 minute video. It is an Alice video, but it really is going to set the tone for us. So we're not promoting Alice because I know that there's other types of security, safety initiatives. I think there's run, fight, there's one of those, and then so we're not advertising Alice, but this really sets the tone for response time when we start talking about the school marshal and working with our school resource officers. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there before we.
I think I hear gunshots. Is there somebody shooting in here? Everybody had gunshots in the hallway? I just checked out the wrong job. When I walked into that bathroom, I heard one person say, you don't have to do this. Nobody has died yet. The average response time is somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes.
Everything that you think you would do, you don't do. Your common sense goes out the window.
The better you make the training, the better prepared your students or your people are going to be if they ever have to truly act. It's not just for the school, it's for everyday life.
The ALICE training method is so important because it forces you to look at everything very differently.
Sometimes bad things happen, and it pays to be prepared.
Which leads us into talking about the school
I
marshal
choose Wix
program.
for my business because of its massive scope for functionality.
We're actually going to show you several different products, but I think it is important for Mike and I just to say that We're not getting paid. We're not sponsored by any of these products, these companies. We've had successes. We've had failures with security products. And what we're going to show you has really what has worked for us as a school. So we are going to put brand names up there, but we're not endorsing those. There are several products out there, but we have found that they've worked. School Marshal Program. So the catalyst for this was 2017 was a horrible year. A lot of active shooter events across the country. Governor Sununu in 2018, he put together, on the right you have this report. We're going to show you several reports and sources of information. I highly recommend you start with this one. Governor Sununu in 2018 put a task force together, law enforcement, mental health providers, several other experts across the state. They came up with 40 or so recommendations to be implemented by schools. It wasn't mandated, it was recommended. And they're excellent recommendations. They don't have products necessarily spelled out in there, so you have to do a little bit of research, but it's an excellent start. The School Marshal Program was one of those recommendations, and it's one that Pinkerton chose to use. Dr. Powers, our head of school, decided to implement the School Marshal Program. The reasons for that was because of the shortages with police officers across the country, not just in Derry, where Pinkerton Academy is located, but really across the state and across the country. It's very difficult for a series of reasons. Law enforcement's had some bad press. Kids just don't want to do a career in law enforcement as much anymore. So unfortunately, towns, I think Derry is down 6 or 7, state police are down 40. I'm sure Manchester and Nashua are down in the 20s or something like that. So their mandate, their priority is to protect and serve. So when they're short-staffed, they have to pull resources out of the community. School resource officers are one of those resources that tend to get pulled back. I think that's short-sighted, and I think a School Marshal Program is a great gap filler for that. My job is completely and solely to focus on safety. That's it. I work for Mike Perez, and I give him options. He focuses on education and running a school of 4,000 people, and I'm the expert on the side that says, hey, we should be looking at this, we should be doing that. We use a lot of data. Again, I'm going to show you some studies that go over that. They've got some really good studies that we use. The data we use to convince our board of trustees that the program we're looking at is going to work and it's functional. That's the School Marshal Program. The first question, if you're thinking about a School Marshal Program, first of all, I'm an employee of Pinkerton Academy. I'm armed. We started with 1. I was the first one. We've added 2 more, and I'll go over why. So we have 3 school marshals on campus, and we have 2 school resource officers on campus. So that's a commitment to safety, right? That is a commitment that Pinkerton's putting forth. If you do go armed, you certainly could go unarmed. I'm a little biased. If you're going to get the best bang for your buck, I think having an armed professional on campus makes a lot of sense. I'm going to kind of go over how we got to that a little bit, but if you do go armed, you do have some mandated things that your school system has to go through first. First is a law, RSA 106, talks about an armed security guard or security officer throughout the state. They do mandate that an annual firearm qualification occurs, and also a annual use of force class. So a class that talks about when you can use force and when you can't use force. Keep in mind, I don't have the protections of a police officer. I'm a civilian, so it's a different mindset, especially for retired police officers. It's something that we have to take a step back and really think about. We don't have the protections that a police officer tends to have. So we have the same use of force rules applied to you, same thing for me. The type of candidate. So that's your kind of bare minimum, is having that annual firearm safety course qualification. I would suggest that's the bare minimum. We have a psych test that we put our marshals through, a physical exam, and a background investigation. That's the same standard that a police officer that's looking to get hired at a police department goes for. We have the same qualification course of fire that a police department qualifies their officers for. The idea is that we're not below, we're not above, we're meeting the same standard that our police officers in our community have. I would recommend the type of candidate is really the most important factor. With a retired law enforcement officer, you get a lot of things for free, right? You're going to get someone who is used to making critical decisions under stress and chaos. That's the work environment that a police officer works in. It takes a little while, but you have years of experience in dealing with chaos. We had a stay in place the other day. There was a witness saw or thought that he saw another student with a gun. So those first couple minutes, it was just chaos and stress, and that's how it will always start. It will always start that way, whether you're doing a stay in place, a lockdown, there'll always be that, I don't know, I don't have all the information, but I need to make a decision. So having someone that's just focused on safety there as kind of a tool and a resource for you, I think is very important, especially in those first couple, maybe 15, 30 minutes. You also get a couple other things for free, right? You get de-escalation skills. They're used to talking to people who are frustrated, angry. You're going to get weapon retention skills. So fire proficiency is important, firearm proficiency. I'm going to argue that weapon retention is more important. So every time I walk into school, I'm introducing a gun into school. So I really have to make sure that I know how to make sure that gun doesn't go anywhere else but my holster. So I have to control it. And police officers have years of experience walking through crowds, practicing weapon retention. They're familiar with the gear. They're going to have first aid, stop the bleed training. So when you're looking at a candidate, I lean towards, and I am biased because I was a police officer, but I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with a retired police officer. The other thing that you're going to get is that they work well under stress, and they are used to managing incidents. You think of a car accident, right? That is a little mini incident that's chaotic. There's people hurt potentially. You got traffic all around. You need resources. That's what a police officer does. That is their bread and butter. So really, I think it's the best candidate just to start with. And Mike kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. The reason we have 3 school marshals is that I found for the first year or so that, so Pinkerton is set up like a piece of pizza, right? You got Pinkerton Street up top there at a 45-degree angle, and the horizontal, you have North Main Street. So our campus has 26 buildings, 4,000 people. It's big, right? If I were to start right in the middle there where that phone is and run left or right to our farthest point, it would take me a minute and a half, and I'd be exhausted. But it would take me about a minute and a half. What we're going to talk about in stress here is that there's 2 things when you're looking at technology or some type of plan for your school. If this technology or idea can create a delay, if it can create a delay for the bad guy, like a lockdown, like if the door's locked, or if it can reduce your response time, that technology, that idea, that initiative is worth it. Those are our 2 big points. First filter, we put every idea through. Having 3 school marshals, we split it up into 3 buildings on the right. We have sectors. We have like patrol sectors, very similar to what police departments use. We kind of have a sector in the middle, and then, because I'm the boss, I get the smaller ones off to the left over here. But we can put a school resource officer anywhere within those sectors in 30 seconds. And that's really what the selling point was. Because as you saw in the video, the average active shooter event goes for 5 minutes. And 2 things happen: taken into custody, or the person takes their own life. So we've got 5 minutes to work with where we can reduce what happens. So anything that you can do to reduce that response time is worth any initiative and time and energy that you put forward. We've got it down to 30 seconds, and we're very happy with that. The 2 school resource officers, they're busy. They're chickens with their heads cut off, running around, solving problems. So they can't be really counted on to be in one particular spot, but these sectors kind of give us that 30-second response time.
Before you,
Yeah.
So going back to that event that happened Monday before Thanksgiving. So again, we had a student who reported that he thought he saw another student in the bathroom with a firearm. So, and it just happened to be that Eric and I were actually in my office, which is right
Right to the left, farthest left, right where your hand is.
under the K, right here. So we were right here, and we had to get to the Academy building. So we were right here in Pinkerton Hall in my office, and we hear it come over the radio. Person did real talk, so this is, and we go by numbers. So number 26 to security, we have a report that a student saw another student in the bathroom with a gun. So we kind of look at each other and said, did we just hear that correctly? We did. And so he takes off, and from my building to the Academy building, I would say it's almost a quarter mile. roughly, going up a hill and down a hill. So by the time that I probably got there, because I went as well, I probably was there within a minute. He was already there, but before he got there, one of the resource officers was there, and one of the school marshals was already there. And that's one of the nice things about having that school marshal and the resource officer on campus. The reaction time was under a minute, where that's why I kind of wanted to show that video too, because the resource officer in the video, he actually said the average response time is 8 to 20 minutes. And we have it down to under a minute. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the school marshal versus the SRO oversight. So as you all know, because most of you probably have resource officers in your buildings, the nice thing about having a school marshal is, so we have 2 associate deans of students, assistant principals per grade level. So the nice thing with that is if you're a male assistant principal, you need to search a female, you need somebody else in the room. No matter what, you need somebody else in the room. But the nice thing is that we can have one of the school marshals be present for the search where we can't with a school resource officer. So some schools that, if you have, because in the past where I've been the only assistant principal's busy, director of school counselor is busy, you can't really have one of your admin assistants be present for the search. So you gotta sit that kid down, isolate that kid, take his bag, put it somewhere else, make sure everybody knows that you're not searching his stuff before another adult's present. You try to get a hold of the parent. It's a lot. The nice part about having a school marshal who's armed, he's not a police officer or she's not a police officer, they're able to help you with that search as well. So that also helps. So that's one of the things. And then on top of it, having a school marshal, I'm going to emphasize this a ton, with them pulling school resource officers out because of the lack of police, the lack of state troopers, the lack of employment. And we're seeing, and I've talked to other administrators throughout the state that they're seeing the same thing, that their resource officer will be there one day, won't be there for 2. Will be there another day, won't be there for another day, because they're getting pulled and being put on the road. So that's the plus to having a school marshal on campus.
One of the products, one of the things when I first started was our visitor management system was archaic. So any visitor or vendor or anyone that came into school, we would have check-in at the main office. We would check their ID, and then they would write down on a piece of paper on a clipboard. They could have written George Washington, right? In and out time. So that just wasn't, that just didn't really sit well with us. Being a school, we're responsible for that student safety, that staff member safety, quite honestly. And we're vetting this person, and then we're introducing them into our community. So we need to make sure that we do a really good vetting process, and make sure that we know who we're letting into our community. I think we have a responsibility for that. So we upgraded. If you're doing a search for visitor management systems, that's what you want to use, visitor management systems. Then you're going to have all different types of companies. That's kind of the buzzword to do searches on. We went with Raptor, and again, we're not endorsing it. It's just worked very well for us. We have one station in our main office, and it's about $1,600 per year to start with all the hardware and the first year licensing. Every year after that, it's $630. So it's a pretty good bang for your buck. It's very easy to use. We have security officers that are great at computers and that aren't great at computers. So it's very intuitive, easy to use. The process takes about 2.5 minutes. The big thing that it does is it scans. You're going to drop the government ID, which is a driver's license. We mandate that everyone has to be credentialed when they come into school. If they left the ID in the car, which is, we get parents, we make them go back out and get it, right? The process has to be stringent. Vendors, we've sent letters to our vendors. If you're on the National Sexual Offender List, you cannot conduct business on school property. So all of our vendors get checked as well. And the nice thing about the Raptor system is that it does that automatic check of the National Sexual Offender Registry. So that is, by the way, anyone can do that. This system just makes that connection. It's a free check out there. You can drop anyone's name in it. But what's nice about it is you put the government ID in, It scans the picture, name, date of birth, uploads it into the system, does the check. If you do get a hit, you would have the person in front of you imposed, split screen, and then on the right you would have whoever they think the hit is. We have gotten several false positives, and you just have to screen it. You know, Chris Smith walks in. There might be a Chris Smith on the national, thousands of entries on there, so you just have to screen it. The person that you're dealing with is not going to know that there's a hit unless your eyeballs explode and you freak out. But it's not disruptive to the space. Your main office conducts a lot of business. There's also products out there that do self check-ins. So they have almost like a kiosk that the person walks up to. So if you have staffing issues within main office, there are options that can be unmanned, I guess, and someone just kind of checking periodically. It's not illegal to be on the National Sexual Offender Registry. So a possibility is that a parent or what have you comes in and they're on the list, but they still have some type of business to conduct at school, 504 meeting, IEP, whatever it is. So our policy is if there's a hit, we just escort them throughout their entire time on campus. We turn them over to maybe a counselor or a person they're meeting with. That counts as a staff member. Then that staff member calls security and we walk them back to their car. We try to, keep it, we don't try to make it look like they're being escorted by security. We, try to keep it conversational and that we're just showing them where they're actually going to.
Next is the security cameras, the surveillance system. So we're a large campus, so we have 181 cameras on campus. Not every school building's gonna have that many, but we use Verkada. Couple nice things about that is it's user-friendly, it's cloud-based. I actually have it on my phone. So if I get a ding at, unfortunately, as many as you're on 24/7 sometimes. If I get a ding at 10 o'clock at night because something's going on, or it's okay, then I can just look. I don't have to go find a computer. I can just kind of look at it on my phone, which is good and bad depending where you are. If you're on vacation on a Wednesday afternoon, it's probably not the best. But the other nice part that we have is we have facial recognition on the system. And so we can if we have a face of somebody that we are looking for, we know if it's a student or an adult, and we have either a picture of that student using their SIS picture, or if we're looking for a staff member, or we get a picture of, or we go on the camera and we do a still shot of an individual walking on campus and we don't know where that person is now, we can plug that into the system and that will pick up anybody that relatively looks like that person, or it will be that person and it will be wherever they are on campus and a camera will pick it up, which is fantastic. And it actually works pretty well in that incident that we had on Monday, where we had a student coming out of the bathroom that was the suspect and we didn't know where he had gone to. And so we just kind of plugged his face into the system and it picked up every camera that hit him throughout the way. So within 3 or 4 minutes, we knew where that kid was and we grabbed him and snagged him. And it ended up being a bunch of vapes in his pants and not a gun. Because the kid that thought he saw a gun said he saw a long, skinny cylinder with a white tip, and there was a nice long vape that looked like could be a skinny barrel of a firearm.
Yeah, vape, gun, whatever.
Yeah. So luckily, it wasn't anything huge, but we were able to do that. We've actually put in our faces to see if it will set off, and sure enough, you put in that detection, you'll get the ding on your phone. That's the person you're looking for. It's wonderful, especially on a bigger school. In a bigger school, it's fantastic to have that piece to it. So, and I think the big thing is, we were talking the other day, you need to have an IT director that is very willing to be knowledgeable in this situation and really work with admin and the school security team, just because it's user friendly, but it's an intense product as well. So it's a great product, but you have to have that IT director that's gonna be willing to work with that.
So a couple of questions on perimeter, right?
Sure.
I guess it's under planning. It's like I'm in communications, so I don't do this type of product. But you know, when I think about Texas, do they have like artificial intelligence? In other words, you think about Texas, right? The kid walking up with a black hoodie,
Yeah,
and he's 5 feet from a door that's open. Like, are these companies moving so that there's AI in there so you can load in black hoodies? It sees that image and closes all the doors, kind of thing.
that's a good
Is
question.
that
So,
happening?
I don't think it would automatically close the door. I didn't find any product in my research now that is like operating on its own.
That makes sense to you guys, though, right? Because then
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
go to metal, and then you go to metal.
Yeah,
Like, again, it'd be huge investments, but you look at Pinkerton, right? It's a circle, like most of them are.
Yeah.
Nashville, you got to drive around the whole building. You know, like, why does there have to be any? Like, do they have kids have to walk through detectors in the mornings? Or
We don't use that just because we have so many kids and
Okay.
Yeah.
kind of cause a backlog. But the system is intelligent in that you can program it to look for, it puts a bunch of ones and zeros on every single image that it processes.
Yeah.
And then we go back and say, I want to see every kid with a red sweatshirt. Boom, it'll give you every single kid in a red sweatshirt in a certain time frame. Black backpack, blue pants. So, like for instance, that Maine shooter, a couple weeks ago, he was on the loose, and our social media in our area was saying that he was going down 93. But we had already put his picture into our system just in case he came onto campus. It wasn't really something that we had any intelligence that he was coming, but it's a good tool to use that would have notified us if someone came on campus that we didn't want. That could be a prohibited parent. It could be anybody that you choose, and it's called a person of interest.
Yeah. Person of interest. And we were able to just, so you know too, we were able to work with our lawyer and to put language in the student handbook, to put language in to make sure that we can use that facial recognition. So just there is language that is able to be put out there. And because some people will say, and we get this sometimes, well, you're Pinkerton, you're an independent school. We still run as a public high school. So we still have to follow those same, the same FERPA laws and things like that. So we were able to get language from the lawyer to put into our student handbook that will cover the using the facial recognition to find a student, mainly the students on campus.
So that's it. So if someone shows up with military garb on and a camera hits it, you're going to get some sort of.
Well, we would have to tell the cameras what to look for.
Yeah.
So we would have to put that in. Like it has motion detectors. It has, I forget what it's called, but it's like a herding option. So you can tell it to, if you have someone holding the door for 20 people walking in, it'll notify you that you've got a herding situation happening.
And we've been really pushing for our kids, in a lot of schools, the see something, say something, initiative. So we've really been doing, we have a flex block, homeroom, advisory, however, it depends on the school, what it's called. So we have a flex block, so we do some tabletops, but we're also really doing more of a push on our ALICE procedures, but we're really starting to do this year a push on the see something, say something. So we really want a kid, especially on a campus like Pinkerton, where we're really trying to push for all faculty members to be wearing their IDs. And if a kid sees someone in fatigues walking down the main behind the Hackler Gymnasium, they go to a trusted adult or any adult that they know that says, hey, can you let security know there's some weirdo on campus, so that's what we're trying to push for. So then we could put that in the system. If we were like, oh, we don't know where that person is, that's all in fatigues and has potentially a firearm, we can throw that into the system and track them pretty quickly.
Shooter detection system real quick, because I know we've got a few more slides. Yeah. Again, Mike and I harp on this, but this is the filter that we use to determine if we're going to put energy, time, and effort into a product, if it creates a delay and or reduced response time. So response time is everything, right? The stats we know is that historically these go 5 minutes to 0 to 5, right? So that's our window to reduce. So the shooter detection system, as you guys know, you guys have walkie-talkies in your schools or some type of radio frequency. Is it difficult to get on during some type of emergency? Everyone wants to get on the same single frequency and talk. So in a critical incident, it's important that people don't do that, but we're all humans. So it takes a couple minutes to figure out who we're looking for, what's going on, where. This system nullifies that for all the major hitters. If a shot goes off anywhere in our school, this system, which is on 24 hours, will tell us it has to have two things. So it's a redundant system. So that cuts down on false alarms. It has to have that muzzle flash, that explosion, bright light, and at the same time, it has to have a certain concussive level sound. And if it gets those two, this system kicks in. Automatically, Mike was talking about his phones. Our phones are going to say shot detected. And we have all of our floor maps built into this system. So every floor, every building, it shows us where the sensors are. Shot detected would come across here. This annoying, loud alarm that you can't ignore goes off. It superimposes up on everyone's screen, like in our security, in our main office, in our admin offices, and it tells us exactly where the shot was. So right away, it tells all of us where we're going. More importantly, it tells the police department, police dispatch, exactly what's going on. A shot has been fired on this floor outside of this room, and it tells the fire department that same information. So that saves 2 minutes out of that 5 for us right away. Boom. So you don't have to spend time on communicating the what, when, where. This will tell you. So being a police officer for 20 years, that was one of my biggest pet peeves as a supervisor, is when people are stressed, they're on the radio, humans want to hear other humans, and so just keeping people off the radio is the biggest plus for me on this particular system. Shooter detection system is the company. There are other products out there. These guys are based out of Massachusetts. There are several products that do the same thing. It's relatively cost effective. It was about $250,000 for our school. That's a big number, but keep in mind, we got 26 buildings. So it's not perfect. We have had one false alarm. So when this system goes off, it goes off. So you really have to train the system. The police department from that situation automatically will contact their SROs to confirm we've got a live situation or is it a false thing. So you have to build some kind of catches into it a little bit. I think you're up, right?
Yep. So this is not so much tech, but we have a behavior intervention team that we try to, and a lot of schools have this, but we meet for 15, 20 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and we really talk about, and it's me, it's Eric, it's the director, the dean of student services, it is one or two of the associate deans or assistant principals, school counselor, and then the at-risk counselor. So, and we usually Zoom it, just easier. And we just get on and we just make sure that we're talking about any of the heavy hitter kids that could be coming across campus, could be coming across multiple desks. And it's just a good way. And so people know that we have this team. So some teachers will reach out to one of the assistant principals and say, hey, can you bring this person up? They're kind of hitting my radar as a teacher. And I've been talking to a couple of the teachers and we've been hearing that this kid has been hitting the radar. So, and we'll talk about violence, we'll talk about self-harm, we'll talk about problems at home, things of that nature. So that's just one of the things that we're trying to, that pre-ventative kind of stuff that we try to do on the campus. Because with 3,200 kids, it's we're gonna hopefully not miss any, but it could be really easy to miss one at 400 kids, So with 3,200, we're really trying to wrap around as many students as possible.
And I'm going to refer back to that bid team because all these things I'm telling you about, like I'm a police officer, right? That's the most important thing that we have. It's about, I'm going to get into here some of the behaviors of an active shooter event. I know we're running kind of late or running out of time, right? 9:15? 9:20. Oh, beautiful. Okay. So the Secret Service, I'm going to say that the premier threat detection agency, right? They have to protect the president, all these other dignitaries. They have a threat analysis team, a bunch of smart people that simply look at data and try to predict the threat and then they go out and get in front of it before their protectee comes in. So they have turned and used their resources right around 2018 to look at the school shootings that have been going on and try to understand it. And they cannot tell you that Jimmy Marshmallow is going to be an active shooter, but what they can tell you, 14 behaviors that if you start to see these behaviors and nothing is done, there's no mitigation, there's no intervention, they can predict with these 14 behaviors this person will commit harm, self-harm, harm to someone else. That's powerful. And I don't really have time to get into 14 behaviors, but what I do have are the 2 studies here that I would focus you in on. You'll find all the behaviors in these 2 studies. They put this out. This is on their website, easy to download. You can get a box of them if you want to hand them out to your staff. Easy to read, kind of like an executive summary, a lot of data. So Mike and I use these particular 2 books. When we have some type of tech idea we're looking to push, we really like it. We can go back in here and find the data that backs up why we need this product. We found it to be very helpful. It focuses us, streamlines kind of us. There's a lot of products out there. Everyone's trying to sell you something. We really focus on this. I'd highly encourage you to get these. The 14 behaviors, that bit team, we start to see 1, 2, 3, or 4. The first one is they have a grievance. Duh, right? But the person has to have a grievance to really build that anger up. Could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, teacher, could be me. Second would be that they lack coping skills. So yeah, a lot of students in high school lack coping skills, but if they have a grievance, anger, they lack coping skills, they don't have a trusted adult that they can vent with or guide them out of it. They turn to social media, numb themselves to violence, and they somehow develop that firearms are the solution to the problem. So mental health and firearms, those 2 should never be connected. Unfortunately, these 14 behaviors have somebody who is not well that has access to firearms. And that's why the big team's so important. Prevention, prevention, prevention. You're never gonna get a sexy stat that says you averted something, but I would make the argument that that's where our real energy should be spent. Tap into the school resource officers, we have a flex period, is that common throughout the state? But it's a teacher that sees their students every day. So that's a baseline. That's a great person to talk to. Hey, Jimmy's having a bad day, like what's going on? And just wrapping resources around kids so that they don't continue to walk up that stair. I think you're next, right? Yeah. Access control. Our last is access control. Control access, right? You just want to control people that come into your school. That's our big Achilles heel. We're like a small college. We've got a lot of property, a lot of buildings. So we are developing an access control system. So it's expensive in that you have to run power to every door. We got a lot of doors. So it's very expensive for us. But if you have a rectangular sized building, it's scaled down. It's not just key fobs, buzzers, intercoms. Those are your traditional access control. Well, there are other products that you can completely get behind that are rather cost effective. Security window film, cheap money. Sandy Hook, actually that anniversary is coming up, 14th. So we always try to have extra police on campus that day to help the staff with their stress, and we have a kind of a larger presence outside and what have you, but that's coming up. But Sandy Hook was the catalyst for security window film. The shooter there lands, the school did everything right. The school after 9 o'clock had it locked down, intercom was manned, visitors had to come to the intercom. All he did was take a firearm and shoot the glass up. Schools love glass, right? This security window film can be transparent or tinted, chemically bonds with the glass. It provides zero ballistic protection. You can still shoot through it, but it hardens the glass. So it's like taking a butter knife and trying to cut through a milk carton or something. Very difficult. And what does that create? That creates a delay. And that's really what we're trying to do. So it's about $400 for like a main entrance, 4 doors across. But you also have to look logically at the glass windows left and right of the doors. You don't want them they can't get in here, but they can bust this window and then just pop the door. So you want to think of it a little bit longer. There are great vendors in the state. Highly recommend that. And then Virginia Tech, again, students of the past active shooter events. The Secret Service study these. They provide these kind of summaries, and having one exterior door handle. I would never have thought of that, but in Virginia Tech, the guy took chains, wrapped up the doors and the first responders couldn't get in. So we have on the right, we have a handle, on the left door, we have just a metal plate. And that's something your buildings and grounds folks can do. That's not a difficult thing to do. We haven't found that people have struggled or the doors aren't used as much. They just go to the handle and they pull it.
All right. Almost out of time, so I want to get to, so follow-up session and questions. So through the NHASP, Steve Beals, principal of Alvern, and then Kim McCann out of Goffstown, they run the principal, it's a bi-weekly, monthly, either principal or assistant principal meetings. A lot of times it's on Zoom. This Friday for principals, it's going to be at Timberlane. So in February, we haven't set the date specifically, but in February, we're going to be hosting at Pinkerton. We're going to look to host assistant principals and the principals, both groups, to come to Pinkerton to really look at the security systems, the shooter detection systems, the Raptor system, and then really talk about the school marshal system. I've been getting a lot of questions about the school marshal system, so before I open it up to any other questions, I do want to actually talk a little bit, because this is one of the big questions that I'm starting to get more of, and I think Eric does, is because we're not a public school, we are an independent school, we're not in the state retirement, right? So it's easier for us to hire former police officers to be full-time school marshals. So, you know, some of the tricks with that is to hire part-time. Hire 2 part-time school marshals. You don't have to offer benefits and you don't have to invest in the state retirement. Or if you only hire 1, you get them you offset them with some of the with the resource officer. Maybe they only work 30 hours a week. It's not the most ideal because they may not be there from start to finish in the day, but there's some ways around a public school because there's no way around it. If you're going to hire a former police officer as your full-time school marshal, you're going to have to offer them the benefits and you're going to have to offer them state retirement. It's just, that's the one of the downsides to a public school doing that policy or that procedure. So that's just one of the major questions that usually kind of pops up about the school marshal program. But in February, we will be hosting an event at Pinkerton for school safety. So any questions for us?
When you were showing visitor management, you made me think about what about students in terms of signing in, signing out, being dismissed, maybe going, I don't know if they have internships or whatever, but leaving. How do you manage students flow in and out of the buildings?
So when they come to school, like if they're coming in late to school, they go to their own academy office. So we have, there's 4 buildings that have their own specific academy office. So seniors are over, if you know the academy, seniors are by the Stockbridge Theater in the Humanities Building. If they're being dismissed, all dismissals go through one, it's the main office. So all dismissals go through the main office.
That Raptor system, and I think a few other products we looked at, does have a attendance application. So the main office people can run their attendance passes and what have you with that little sticky label.
That's what we do in Newport. We run our visitors and our students through that.
Yeah.
We just have numbers. That's always our Achilles heel, is just scope and scale. And so it was just too many, it would just create too much of a delay if we had one spot for a moment.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And I didn't put our emails on there, but it's mperez@pinkertonacademy.org, ekester@pinkertonacademy.org if you are interested. Any other questions that pop up or arise, if you can't make February and you want to come down for a visit, we are more than happy to have people come on campus and check it out. We'll send you through the Raptor system and then we'll go from there. All right. So if there's no more questions, we are good. It is 9:20 on the dot. So thank you.